Take 3,700. Yes. It's the 515 laughing at me. It's so bad. These are so bad. My name's Jeff. My name's Jeff Coates. Sato Chicken is the other name that I have. And tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the tools that I use when I make my drawings. A lot of you on Instagram are asking me that question. So really quickly, I'm going to show you those. And I'm going to draw something. And actually, that is something that I wanted to talk about. So one of the things that I try and do with my drawing is try and make it look like it is paper and pencil. That's really the look I'm going for. And that kind of started a while ago. There's an artist named Scott C. Some of you might know who he is. He was an art director at Double Fine Games. I don't think he's still there anymore. I'm not really sure. But anyway, he does these amazing watercolors. Go to pyramidcard.com and check out his stuff. He does just incredible work, and I've always loved his stuff. Anyway, he works in watercolor. He works really loose, and I've always liked his line. So a few years ago, I was trying to copy him, but I'm not much of a traditional artist or a traditional media artist. I'm just going to draw something so it's slightly interesting. So I was looking at his work and really liking it and wanting to do something similar, but not being very good with watercolor. The only time I ever tried painting, I bought a full set of oil paints thinking I was going to be this amazing oil painter overnight or instantly because I felt like I had some talent. And then about 5 minutes into it, I think it was literally 5 minutes in, I realized I know nothing about water or oil colors. So I chucked everything in the garbage in frustration. I was younger and dumber. So I'm working on this article for CG Society, and I won't go into too much about what that's going to be. But I start off with a really loose sketch, and what I want is some guys walking around staring at their phones. So to do that, in layers, I'm going to start a new layer, and I want to be really loose right off the bat, because I want the final drawing to retain some kind of fluidness that I get with a sketch. So I don't try and, on the first layer that I use, I've already got this guy here, I'm going to do another one for you, is I don't try and, I obviously am not trying to be perfect at all with this. I'm just trying to get a basic shape down. So I'll do this. There's this guy, and he's kind of bent over, so I'm trying to get the rough gesture down and the direction of things and the scale of things figured out. And then I suck at hands, I should tell you. I'm terrible drawing hands. So I have to stare at my hands constantly when I'm drawing them, especially when I'm drawing a hand holding something, to try and get it right. And I'm trying to get this thumb right because we all write with our phones, or with our thumbs on our phones. So that takes a while. And then if I look at this, I think, well, the head, it's not bent over enough. I want it to be more slouchy. So I will take the lasso tool and select the head just on this rough, and Control T in Windows, Control T to bring up the transformation box, and then I'll just kind of rotate the head a little bit so he's kind of looking down more. And again, nothing's perfect, everything's a rough line. Ba-boom, right? Maybe he's got a backpack on like the other guy does. But I'm also not worried about expression, so there's his other hand. There, that's kind of where his shirt goes, and I'm only going to draw the torso, so there's that. So that's kind of the rough, right? And then what I might do is kind of push in, and I keep a thick brush when I'm doing this, right? So then eyes, nose, staring. Monobrow, sure, bit of hair. If I look at him, that kind of has the right feel. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Okay, so then what I'm going to turn that guy off so you can't see him anymore. And I'll just put him there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take him, knock him down, excuse me, knock him down to like 10% opacity. And I'm going to make another layer over top of it. I'm going to go in again. Notice I'm only using the same brush over and over and over again. So now that I've got the rough shapes there, I'm going to go in and, I don't know, just play around with it a little bit and try and get some of the details figured out. And I'll mess around with this a lot. Like I'll play with this for a little while just to kind of get the right sort of look that I'm after. So I'm not going to bore you with all that. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to come back when it's done. Okay, so I messed around with it for a little while just to figure out a few details on this guy, and now I've got it. And now, so most of it's done in terms of the outline. I'm going to go in and probably, usually what I feel like is just adding a few details if I don't feel like it's got enough. Right, so I'll do this, a few of these, always bags under the eyes every time, maybe some freckles. And I'll just go through and just add detail where I think it needs it without it getting too, without the details kind of taking away from it. But, you know, that's me. That's just what I'm doing. What I don't want to do with these videos or anything that I do is try and suggest how you should be drawing your stuff. I think everyone has to kind of mess around until they find their own style. And for me, like I was saying earlier, looking at Scott C's stuff was a big milestone for me in terms of finding my own style. Because I think the stuff I do now doesn't look anything like the stuff he does. But his looser approach I found really inspiring. So I've tried to maintain, and you can see from the lines that I've got, some of the loose style that he's got. So it's just experimenting and playing around with stuff. And the biggest thing is to just do it all the time. And you'll see your stuff change over time. So I've noticed a change just in looking at what I'm doing. You know, I save everything, so I go back like a year and I take a look at what my drawings looked like a year ago and they're different. Or I take a look at a lot of the work that my amazing wife does, and the change that she's gone through with her work has been incredible in the last year, and you can see it if you go through it all. So, but that's because she and I both do this every day. Now I don't do it full time. I have a job, obviously, as an art director in video games, but I do this when I wake up in the morning, or I do this at night, and I just make a habit of it. So if nothing else, I'd say make a habit of it, and try and do it every day. Doesn't matter what tools you use in the end. It's really just doing it and doing it, doing it and doing it, and that's what makes things different and better. Anyway, that's enough preaching. So now I'm going to do a bit of color. And what I'll do I'll bring in this so you can see. So I made a new layer underneath the outline, and I'm going to color this guy in now. So I'll go in here and I'll pick like a flesh tone, sure, close enough. And then with the same brush, I make the brush bigger using the bracket tools on my keyboard, and then I'll just paint in like this loose. So what I usually do is I just do like blocks of color. And I'm not super tight about it. I could be. A lot of people use the magic wand tool at this point, or the bucket tool, and they'll do fills on things. I don't do that. Maybe I should, but I don't have a lot of closed lines, so it's hard for me to sort of keep it contained. I don't want to draw, like be forced to draw closed lines. So it's just a preference. The thing about Photoshop is there's always 10,000 ways to do everything. So this is just the way I found it. What I do is I paint it in really rough, and then I go in. You can see what I'm doing now. It's a bit tedious, but sometimes I find it really soothing, is to just go in, and everywhere I went over, I just erase. Now I'm on that layer. I'm just on the color layer, which is underneath the outline layer. So obviously I'm not affecting the outline, which is why it's not erasing. Some people think I just have really awesome steady hands, and I do not. I'm super messy, but it works. So then I'll go through, get rid of all this. And then boom, he's got color. Now I don't really like that color. So I'll go into the hue and saturation menu on this, and I'll just mess with it a bit. That way, what's going on there? Sometimes you can have the wrong layer selected. So I'll go into the hue and saturation, and I'll lighten it up a little bit, maybe saturate it a bit more and make it a bit redder. Yeah, that feels better. It's a bit different. So now another layer, another color. I'm going to give them like kind of blonde hair. No, I'm going to make him a ginger. Yeesh, ginger. I'm just kidding. There's nothing wrong with gingers. I'm just kidding. Bad man making ginger jokes. But it's a good color when you're drawing. It's a good color to make people's hair. It stands out. So again, another layer. So I like to have a separate layer for every color that I add to a drawing, because then I can go in and edit each color individually, and I don't have to worry about how it affects the other colors. There, here. And again, these are just color blocks, because what I'd like to do is a bit of shading on everything. So orange, what's a good complementary color for orange? Blue. So blue t-shirt. I'm just going to do this really simply so you can see it. Pretty basic. And I hope somebody finds this interesting or useful. I always think there are so many other artists out there who are doing what I'm doing right now, making videos about their process and what they do, and I look at some of them, and wow, there are some crazy good artists out there. So take a look around and see what else, you know, like see what other videos are out there for you, and see if you can find something that works for you. Me, like I say, what I try and do is just make stuff that has a nice sort of hand-drawn kind of feel to it, even though it's digital, and something that kind of makes me laugh. That's it. There you go. So I'm not going to go into too much more detail here now. That'll be for next time. But there you go. There's the tools that I use, and there's a quick example of how I use a few of them.